These people are all victims of a horrible, horrible misinformation campaign. Insulin plays such a big role in chronic disease. Patients are so scared and so frightened of this boogeyman. These studies are paid for. Something's not right. This is an addiction issue. This is that reward center being hijacked. Ignore the guidelines because the guidelines actually hurt people. And that's part of the problem, is trying to convince people that they're not going to die from a heart attack. Here you are stunting a child's growth during puberty, lowering their insulin levels so they can't grow, and start modifying chemotherapy so that the chemotherapy doesn't kill people. Every aspect of your life impacts your disease. I think it's the best application ever of artificial intelligence that can really help humanity and help the health of all. If you do this, we can get you off your meds right away. Are you ready?
Hey folks, it's Dr. ShawnBaker here. Hey, if you or someone you love is suffering from chronic disease and you're tired of just managing symptoms with potions, pills, and procedures, I want you to check out Revero.com. Our team of dedicated professionals is committed to tackling the root cause of your issue and finally getting you healthy. Hurry up, though. Our spaces are filling up very quickly. We have with us today Kyle Rootsaert, who is a pharmacist and has, I guess, maybe you would say, a unique perspective on pharmacy, I suppose. So maybe just first of all, start out telling us why you became a pharmacist and what's your background in, and then we can go from there.
Okay, so I got into pharmacy as a drug runner. So I got an entry-level job, and I was the guy that delivered all the IV bags. So I was the runner for the pharmacy. And somebody's like, you ought to think about becoming a pharmacist. I'm like, really? I don't think I'm qualified. I don't think I could do this. And I had to take some classes over. But anyways, I ended up going to pharmacy school in New Orleans and went there for several years. And then it was off to UC San Francisco for a 1-year residency. And then after that, I was like, I really thought that being a pharmacist would be this ultimate goal of helping people. Because I'm an empath. I really enjoy helping people. It's the gratification I get when you give some advice and somebody runs with it and it does them some good. But in the world of pharmacy, it's like you're doing tiny little changes, like, changing this dose and preventing this toxicity. And you're doing a lot of drug related stuff. And it wasn't until I got out of hospital and into retail where I realized that there's a significant disconnect between the patient and the physician. There wasn't this education that I thought was going on. Of course, you hear about it, like, oh yeah, patient has been educated this way, and they have these diagnoses because they're on these medications. So a lot of pharmacy school was just memorizing charts, and I felt like it was so much memorization, like a 4-year infomercial. That's how I felt when I started helping diabetic patients. Oh, I lost you. Helping diabetic patients with their disease. Why would a pharmacist be giving somebody a diagnosis over the counter? Like, wait a minute. The doctors had this discussion with the patient. Why am I having this discussion? Right? I'm a pharmacist. I'm giving out, say, a glucometer and some metformin, and this lady's crying about her new diagnosis. And she asked me, what do I do? What do I eat? I'm like, I don't have a really good answer. And that didn't feel right. Saying I don't know is not something that you ever should utter. But if you do, it makes you wonder, like, I need to get back to you. I need to find the right answer because I thought that you were educated. But it turns out I wasn't educated. I really didn't know food because, as a pharmacist, nutrition comes in a bag. It's a TPN, right? Total parental nutrition. It's like fats and proteins and carbohydrates that you add to a bottle. But like really looking at the food, going, I really didn't know much at all. So I started digging in and going, okay, I got to learn about nutrition. And so I started doing these diabetes courses. And every diabetic patient gets like 8 hours of a course. And most people don't even get this 8 hours, but it's not enough. It could never be enough because every aspect of your life impacts your disease. I started going down this road and trying, okay, how can I educate patients? So I started doing this diabetes self-management course. And I really enjoyed it. I enjoyed teaching like I've never done it before. Like this, and the little advice that you give has some pretty major benefits to these people. So I would do this 8-week course, and then I'd ask, like, what do you guys want to do next? Like, we'll be back. So we started doing this support group, and when people did the support group, they had the best outcomes. They would say, "Oh, I got to get to class. I got to get to class." I was doing these classes anywhere. I was actually doing it Round Table Pizza, right before they open, and you can smell the pizza. Here I am doing a diabetes class. But they would come and they wanted to learn. They were hungry for the information. And it wasn't, let's see, I want to say 2014, 2015. I kind of discovered Jason Fung, and I funged that thing out. I enjoyed myself immensely learning about fasting and time restricted feeding, and holy cow, it was working in these patients, and they were getting off of their insulin. And I'm like, wow, this is pretty incredible. And then there was Sarah Hallberg with her TED Talk 2015. Listening to her talk about ignoring the guidelines, and I was like, man, this is kind of strange. Here I am studying the 2015 guidelines, and in there it says the amount of carbohydrates necessary to sustain your life is 0, and then they'll quickly recommend the Mediterranean diet. And you're like, this doesn't make sense. You just said one thing and then just denied it the next paragraph down. And so I started looking at this like, wait a minute, this looks conflicted. So I started looking up all the people who wrote the 2015 guidelines. And in that committee, there's about $750,000 that was funded by Big Pharma. Then I was like, oh, wait, what do you do with these conflicts? I got to take these seriously. And I take conflicts of interest very seriously. That's when I got into open payments data, cms.gov, and started looking up physicians like, wait a minute, you're the principal investigator. How much money did you make off of this? Started looking into the conflicts of interest and started taking them seriously, and started going, wait a minute, these studies are paid for. Something's not right. This is what Sarah Hallberg was talking about. Ignore the guidelines because the guidelines actually hurt people. So I started looking into this going, wait a minute, type 2 diabetes is a condition of hyperinsulinemia. And if you have heard any of Jason Fung's work, it's all about insulin and the hormonal imbalance of obesity. But then it started like really getting into it, and started realizing that this advice was incredibly helpful. And I started working in a diabetes clinic, and I'm in the hospital now, and I'm trying to get a hold of COVID patients during COVID. And I am, you're in those gowns, right? You're like sweating in these gowns, trying to teach these people about diabetes and how it's not a death sentence and there's something they can do about it. Let me coach you. I will coach you using a CGM. So monitoring patients made such a big difference. Holy cow. I mean, before I was trying to tell patients, okay, you gotta test your food. And before, back in the day, it was like you're finger pricking yourself 3 or 4 times around a meal. This hurts. And then when the CGMs came out, and then you had COVID on top, it was like remote monitoring was all the rage. But I've been watching Virta Health since the beginning. And I'm like, wait a minute, you got patients in Indiana and coaches in San Francisco, and they're reversing diabetes in real time using their phone. Man, I started doing that. I realized there's a lot of work involved. There is a lot of long texts and explanations that have to be given. Lots of conversations, a lot of hand holding. It's a lot of work. And so I've been trying to figure out what would be a good tool to be able to deliver that. And so I've been probably spent the last several years trying to condense what I've learned into what actually makes the best outcomes in patients. How can I optimize them by utilizing tools that are available using artificial intelligence? And so kind of merging those patient education with technology, especially the sensor technology. I am so thrilled with what the tools that we have today. I think are going to I think it's the best application ever of artificial intelligence that can really help humanity and help the health of all. If we can make this as accessible as your podcast and have this as many arms as possible, I am a huge believer in the continuous glucose monitor as an amazing tool to see how your lifestyle affects your disease. I think that's the crossroad, is when we can bring that together and learn about our diet and how can we have the we can make this gamified, if you like. Why not gamify? Like, hey, we have a glucose variability group. Those people with the lowest glucose variability, what do you think they'd be, Shawn?
Well, I mean, they would be low carb for sure. I mean,
they would be low carb. Yeah. But if people don't know, and here they are trying to go through their life and they have no clue. Like the other day, the ADA was promoting naps for that afternoon lull around 3 or 4 o'clock in the afternoon. Like, you can go to your car and go take a nap. I'm like, wait a minute. Why don't we ever ask why? Why don't we start any of these discussions off with, what's the root cause? Why are you tired at 3 or 4 o'clock in the afternoon? Do you have any clue? Do you have any clue that your lunch, maybe your sandwich or whatever you had, just dropped you like a rock, and that's why you're tired? And maybe if you just change what your food intake was for lunch, maybe stay away from the refined carbohydrates, you wouldn't have that low. Instead, they're telling you to drink coffee at 3 o'clock in the afternoon. So when you take that 30-minute power nap, the coffee would have kicked in and you feel okay and you're energized. And like, wait a minute. You're giving advice that could destroy someone's circadian rhythm. I mean, talk about get it all whacked out for the next day. But there's never this discussion about, okay, what does coffee do? How is this going to ruin my circadian rhythm for the next day? What should I really be doing to try to not be asleep at 3 or 4 o'clock in the afternoon at work, right? There's hardly any a discussion about root cause. I've found though that this advice, this nutritional advice that we're recommending, this type of diet, is really the key if you can convince people. And that's part of the problem, is trying to convince people that they're not going to die from a heart attack. Their cholesterol isn't going to go through the roof. So I've been trying to get the word out about that. I've done podcasts on this. We did a TV show, Calaveras County TV show. I did an hour on cholesterol and why statins don't work. But I essentially have been in this space. And actually, matter of fact, I met you at the Denver 2023 low carb conference. And I thought, man, I would love to give this guy a hug. But man, he's so huge that if you hugged me, I think I would just disappear or break in half. You're very intimidating in person, but I really appreciate you. I really appreciate you, Dr. Chafee, Saladino, because I did keto for so long and I never realized that bowel issues had anything to do with the amount of fiber that I was taking in every single day. And it was really listening to you guys going, wait, I need to just try it. I need to just try the carnivore diet. So after, I don't know, gosh, man, how long have I been doing this? Probably 7 or 8 years of doing keto, that I switched over to carnivore, and I was like, this is easy. This is the simplest thing. My grocery bills go down. I don't have to go to the store all the time. I don't have to get all this salad that's going to go bad in a couple of days. It's like, no, my life became really, really easy. And I realized that this was going to fuel me the best possible way when I paddleboard. So rewind 10 years ago, I started taking up stand-up paddleboarding and I got into it to the point of racing. So I wanted to know what would be the best fuel to get me the fastest speeds on the water. So believe it or not, you can actually race these things. We have these boards that are like 14. Oh, we actually do one up the Sacramento River. There's one that goes up the Sacramento River. That's the regatta that we do. There's another one that goes down. There's a 100-mile race from that Sundial Bridge to Chico. You're on a paddleboard the whole time. And you could get stuck in some headwind. I don't think it's that safe. I don't think that's a great idea as far as endurance races. Matter of fact, I actually want to use the sensor data that we have to try to help athletes do these endurance sports, but in a healthier way, a way that doesn't put them at risk for, injuries from things like dehydration and fatigue and overdoing it, essentially hitting essentially that wall. And I've noticed when I switched my diet that I'm very fat adapted, incredibly fat adapted, and I can do multiple hour races. There's one that we go across Lake Tahoe. We started the southern part of Lake Tahoe and we finished at the northern. It's 22 miles. Takes about 4.5 hours. And it's like knowing that you're fueled properly and realizing you don't have to be doing these goos and all this carb loading and carbohydrate intake during the race. Like, man, I would get behind so easily if I was carb dependent. I can't do that. If anything, I'm after something salty because I know I've got all the energy I need on board. It's just a matter of how much oxygen can I take in and still be burning majority fat versus carbohydrates. So like, I've measured my respiratory quotient. It's like, I think it's like 85 or something like that. So that at a much higher intensity, like 85% intensity, I'm finally dipping in a little bit more than of the carbohydrate. So it's more than a 50-50 at 85%. So the work of Tim Noakes is pretty impressive. But knowing that like these people, we can burn fat at such a high rate. I think he was measuring at like 1.6 grams per minute. I mean, these people are burning a lot of fat as far as intensity. As the intensity goes up, they're burning mostly, almost completely fat for all their fuel source. I think it's like, imagine like 2 grams per minute, 120 grams. You could be burning like 1,000 calories of fat an hour. I mean, that would be pretty intense. I mean, you would be really putting out some serious energy, but the fact that you have that ability tells you that like what really was the carbohydrates there for. So I've started looking at this from an athletic perspective, and I'm trying to create essentially an AI training coach that can look at your data and modify your training protocol based on today's HRV. It looks like you might be ill. Your glucose just went up, right? You're up 20%, or you're not as well as you should be, and you probably should back off on your workout by say 20% or whatever the AI tells us. Back off on your volume or your intensity. But imagine how many people don't know that. So from an athletic perspective, I'm like, okay, this can really help me. This can really make a difference in my training, make it so that I don't burn out. Right? Nobody wants to burn out. I've been doing this for about 10 years of this paddleboarding, and I enjoy. I do it everywhere, as many places as I can. I'm all year round. Whatever body of water I can find, it's always like, hey, can I get on that river? Wind is amazing. The ocean's fantastic. It's been a crazy journey, because while I started applying what I knew, I lost 50 pounds and trimmed down a lot. And I gained quite a bit of muscle in replacement for that fat. So I was hypertensive. If you look at me, it's like, oh my gosh, the guy's definitely pre-diabetic. And I had the reactive hypoglycemia. So I knew why, and I found out essentially why my blood sugar was so low after a meal. I had issues myself. And what's cool is that everybody has kind of their story that's in this space. They all have like, okay, I practiced what I preached, and I realized that I can lose whatever, and started getting healthy. And now it's all about like trying to be a kick-ass grandpa. How can I get my grandkids to say, Papa, you need to slow down. You're going way too fast. We need a break. Hang on a minute. Can't catch my breath. Yeah. So they're an inspiration, but at the same time, it's like I really want to prove that what I'm eating is very, very important. What I'm doing movement wise, but I think more than anything, I really want people to ask me what I'm eating. Hey, Kyle, what are you eating? Not what are you doing? Well, this is how I eat. And back in the day, trying to convince people to fast and get off their insulin 10 years ago, and even mentioning the word ketogenic was like so foreign. But look at us now. Like, this is crazy. I didn't think this would ever happen. I didn't think that I would ever be teaching people full time and going, man, I live for their outcome. I live to see how this advice works, because it's crazy. They'll come back to the pharmacy counter and go, my doctor said, whatever you were doing, just keep it up. Things are getting great. My blood pressure is normalizing. I've lost weight. My triglycerides are down. My HDL's up. I'm like, wow, that's great. But how many patients do I lose? And I really consider this a loss, but how many patients do I lose to the cholesterol theory? How many patients get scared and go, no, I can't do that? And they're in a position where they're like, I got to pick the advice of the pharmacist, or I got to pick my cardiologist. One's going to write refills, one's not, right? And like, well, that's your choice. But hearing the side effects of a statin over the counter is, man, it's beyond disheartening. And I've seen too much of that. That is, for me, when you see it and you ask patients, like, do you have brain fog? Yeah, the doctor said that was just normal aging. How about the muscle? Like, yeah, I said that was normal. This is what happens as you get older. Like, man, that is so wrong. And the slurred speech. I mean, I was actually in a diner one time, and I could hear the lady behind me talking to her sister about her doctor's appointments, and I can hear this like sound like a stroke, like such slurred speech. And she was on 80 milligrams of Lipitor. Like, man, that is so wrong. It is. I'm sorry, but this is very inappropriate. But you don't need to believe me. Just take yourself off of it for a few days, maybe a week, and see how you feel.
Hey, folks, it's Dr. ShawnBaker here. Hey, if you or someone you love is suffering from chronic disease and you're tired of just managing symptoms with potions, pills, and procedures, I want you to check out Revero.com. Our team of dedicated professionals is committed to tackling the root cause of your issue and finally getting you healthy. Hurry up, though. Our spaces are filling up very quickly.
Just do a little experiment. Patients are so scared and so frightened of this boogeyman, and it really just comes down to just lack of information and confidence in knowing that you have the right information and that it's time to act on it. I think there's a big step of courage that a lot of people need to get, and it's so frustrating because I'm watching them suffer over this misinformation campaign and trying to teach people, especially when I worked in the hospital. This was like the most challenging, is trying to convince these doctors, who is going to have the worst COVID symptoms, and essentially like trying to teach them about the role of something as simple as insulin, something that you and I take for granted. But I'm telling you, I feel like it's a secret. It's like this dirty little secret. Like in pharmacy school, you're just taught that, insulin comes in a vial and it's just there to lower glucose. They never tell you that it's involved in so many other pathways. And when you start putting that together, like the background helps, the biochemistry background helps. The pharmacy background does not help very much at all. It was pretty much worthless. Here I am. It was a 4-year infomercial costing me hundreds of thousands of dollars to know that you never answered my question. Like, why? Why do they have hypertension? We memorize these guidelines and these tables, but we never ask why. Why does somebody have high blood pressure? Like, really, is it really salt? Is it, trying to break down these questions for patients has been like, I don't know, that's been the fuel that keeps me going. When a patient says to you, this happened several times in diabetes clinic, I only had like 20 minutes with them, and I would try to teach them as much as I could about nutrition and go, hey, in 20 minutes time, either get me to let me track you, or let me convince you of the right diet. So I'm sure your listeners will appreciate this. If I don't have much time, I got like one sentence, I'll be like, okay, let's put it this way. The quickest to carnivore wins. If you do this, we can get you off your meds right away. Are you ready? And if I get a, yeah, that makes sense, let's do this. Oh man, move on. It's usually like, hey, do you like a barbecue? Do you really like, and just skip the sides? This is really the easiest way to explain something to people. But if I have more time, yes, I would love to put a sensor on you. And man, bringing people off of insulin is always, it is fascinating. So I work with a physician with a collaborative practice agreement, and we have these guidelines, and getting people off insulin. Holy cow. I mean, it's the most rewarding thing I've ever done. Like first day, their blood sugar is 300, 280, 260. Like, we just wanted to see where are you, right? What level of insulin resistance do you have? So taking them off of it, and man, getting people off of insulin in just a short period of time is just, it feels like a miracle. It just feels, wow. I mean, it gives you purpose. You feel like you have this amazing purpose in your life. And that's what I have found. I've helped a lot of people. I've helped people lose weight, get pregnant, right in the middle of COVID too. Like it's amazing to see the change. And I don't even mention exercise, but before I know it, they're like coming to me going, yeah, I'm going to the gym 3 days a week now. I'm like, wow, okay. We didn't even talk about that. We didn't even talk about it, exercising. But typically, if you fix the metabolism and their fueling, holy cow, when you fix that, the energy just shows up. And now they're like, I don't know what to do. Yeah, well, I guess you start moving. You might as well start walking. You might as well start doing something, but it just kind of like takes on a life of its own. Before you know it, they're inviting more friends to come talk and like, hey, this is exciting stuff. They've shared, and it's helping. Like I'm sure a lot of your viewers have sent links, reposts. It's amazing how much information, how fast it's growing. Back in the day, it's like you needed a library card, to get to the medical textbooks or the journals. And now it's like, guess what, guys? All that information was kind of useless. And now you don't need a library card. You just need a phone. You can look up all of this stuff on your own. Anyone can chase these rabbits. And that's essentially what I did. Chased rabbits like crazy, and utilizing my science background. I go, okay, how can I present this in an understandable way, right? Making this as simple as possible, taking these complicated medical concepts and dumbing it down and making it as simplified as possible so that anyone can understand essentially how to fix their lifestyle with, sensor technology, using your own feedback, your own metabolic data. Somebody will say, oh, well, everybody's different. Like, no, we're pretty dang similar. And the differences I appreciate, but at the same time, like, to say that, oh, that's not going to work for me, right? Oh, I did the ketogenic diet. I've heard that so many times. Oh, you did the ketogenic diet. Oh, right. Did you measure? Did you measure your ketones? What did you do? Oh, I ate real clean. And yeah, but did you measure anything? No, you didn't. If you didn't see your glucose, man, and really, quite honestly, if you haven't used a CGM, a continuous glucose monitor, you haven't seen. So don't tell me how great your oatmeal is. Don't tell me how great these healthy foods are. Everybody needs to have one. And I think it's ridiculous that it's not covered by insurance. Same thing with the insulin level. Like, why aren't we measuring these things? Why aren't these things covered by insurance? This should be in every arm. Everybody should know what their blood sugar is doing all the time. That's my personal. I don't wear it all the time, but when hey, you got this thing for 2 weeks. Let's line up these experiments, just one after another. Come on, let's check this out. Let's see what this does, because I really want you. Like, let's test your favorite snacks. I think Mark Hyman did he did a good show about this. They could do high carb for 1 week and low carb for the next. And they had to put them on this regimen. And the high carb people are like, man, I'm hungry between meals. And they were measuring it at the CGM. They were educating these people during this 2 week experiment. Then the second week they were doing low carb. And they're like, man, I'm not hungry. I can't believe I'm force feeding myself. It was a cool, I can't remember, what was it? Oh, I think it was Fat Fiction with Mark Hyman. But it was all about people not realizing what their food's doing, and then seeing it was an eye opener. It really changed their their perspective, and they're like, I can do this because I'm not hungry. So they started realizing that they're fueling their brain differently. They started getting into this mild ketosis, and it really was through the CGM, the continuous glucose monitor. I think they used the Libre in that experiment, but I'm so fascinated with this. I think its application is huge, and especially as we get more sensors. Imagine the utility of having like a continuous lactate sensor, or man, there's all kinds of different sensor technologies coming out that I think are going to be earth-shattering, groundbreaking. I mean, we're going to see some, not just glucose. I mean, there's so many that have yet to be put into a continuous sensor. The problem is going to be how much do you need for interstitial fluid, right? What do you need for lactate? Or other inflammatory markers. Imagine having an insulin or a cortisol sensor. I think the day and age will come where we'll have a lot of data on people. But the question is, do people know what to do with the data? Do we have a clue as to what that data means? And I really believe that it's going to be through that education that people can start taking their health and taking it seriously. Because I feel like my wife and I do this all the time. It's like, hey, how'd you sleep last night? Oh, I got a 90. Oh, wow, that's pretty good. I got an 80. Or oh, my shoulders are really sore. Okay, I know where this is going. So how much stress did you have? Oh, I had an hour and 45 minutes today, depending on our Oura Ring results. Or, oh, I got 3 hours and 15 minutes. Okay, yeah, that discussion is over. I guess I'll go get the oil and start rubbing it in, because it's based on data. Instead of just saying I'm fine, like, what does that really mean? Give me a number, right? Let's be more objective about your condition. So if I'm decided I'm going to do a long workout, let's check out what my data shows. What's my HRV? Was my respiratory rate off? Was my sleep off? How much sleep did I get? How much REM? How much deep? Like, going into these details and utilizing the data that we have, like Oura Ring. I have an Oura Ring. I have another ring that I think is kind of cool. It's got an LED on it, but being able to see like what your heart rate is all the time. I think I've been nerding out on that, using these sensors, the smartwatch, the smart ring, and going, all right, what does this data really mean? Right? What heart rate zone should I be during my workout? But if I knew that maybe today wasn't a good day, I could back off and not get injured and not burn out. But if I knew that, hey, today's a really good day, I can increase my intensity. Imagine having a workout that you can modify on the fly. So yeah, there's a lot of application, I think, for sensor technology. I think D'Agostino is really into this as well. I was looking into lactate, as well as GKI, glucose ketone index. I really kind of think like the utility of ketones in oncology and chemotherapy treatment, I think that's going to be an exciting future. I think seeing all the different levers that we can push and stress those tumor cells, utilizing that our old understanding of cancer metabolism. I'm a big fan of Thomas Siegfried, Steve Cunane, all these people that I've been watching for so long in this ketogenic space, utilizing ketones not just for the brain health, the mental health is a big area of growth right now. But seeing the utility of ketones in stressing tumors as another lever to kind of be utilized with chemotherapy at the right time. These people are fasting like 3 days before they start their chemo, stressing those tumor cells. And I've even heard of them giving a little small dose of insulin, stressing those tumor cells even further, and then applying the chemotherapy and the radiation, right? And then now the question is, at what dose? You got to almost kind of rewrite oncology, because now you can get by with a lower dose. Not to mention you can get by with a lower dose of steroids, right? You can start modifying these doses, because a little bit's going to go a lot further when the patient is stressing the tumors out on their own by doing a low glucose diet, a ketogenic diet. So looking at that GKA, glucose ketone index, and start modifying chemotherapy so that the chemotherapy doesn't kill people. That's the concern. Like, and not to mention allowing radiation to work better because you're lowering the lactic acid or lactate that surrounds these tumor cells, this microenvironment. So you're allowing the radiation to work better. In addition to, you're empowering these people to be able to go, okay, I can do something about, and I can be an active participant in my own treatment here. What can I do to essentially knock out these tumors as best as I can? Because if you look at a tumor, these cancer cells, how do they light up? It's basically radio labeled glucose, and you see where it goes. You look at these PET scans, you're like, you can see where the glucose has the highest uptake, is where the tumor is. Why can't we utilize that to stress the tumor ourselves by essentially knocking out glucose and just feeding it ketones, which it can't utilize anyways? Why can't we utilize the ketogenic therapy as one of the most important treatment in the event of cancer? Some of these cancers, this is so frustrating that people are just so willing to accept genetics as this plausible theory for cancer. Like, oh, I got it because of my genes. Really, you don't have it in your genetic history. Why is it so prevalent? Why is it going up? People don't want to answer any of these questions, and they want to ignore the fact that insulin plays such a big role in this, in chronic disease, and especially cancer. Like, they just want to just throw in the towel and say, I got it. Like it was some sort of contractable disease. This is stupid. I've had discussions that weren't so easy to tell, to ask a patient, hey, what are you eating and drinking all day? And to find out that no one's ever asked them. Like, no, unfortunately, because of that, you've probably bought yourself this diagnosis. Your intake of sugar has been through the roof for 20 years. And you thought that was okay and that was normal. No one bothered to tell you. I feel like you're just a victim of really this horrific food that we've all been exposed to, all these mitochondrial toxins. Like this is the driver. And to tell someone, I think, that it's genetic disease is just this big, massive relief. But the reality is, like, no, you bought yourself this. Let's do something about it. I'm so anti-sugar. I cannot. Yeah. John Yudkin, I think about him. It's like everything should be a tribute to him. Like we just ignored the man and disgraced him and ran him out of town on a rail. Like the guy was like, wait a minute, what about sugar and cardiovascular disease? What is this? How can we have this phenomena? And yeah, we all know the story about the Harvard scientists that were paid off. To me, it's just, I look at people as they're all just victims. It's not their fault that they look like this. Ken Berry, it's not your fault, but it's still your problem. It's like, yeah, I agree. But these people are all victims of a horrible, horrible misinformation campaign. This is so unnecessary. This death and suffering is what I feel tremendously every single day. Like, why are these people going through this? They shouldn't look like this. I should be not the only person on the lake paddling at one time. There should be gobs of us, right? I would love to have the parking be a problem because there's so many people out on the water. I want to see that, but I don't. And I feel like it's just gotten worse. COVID made it worse. We all isolated. They didn't do anything. As a matter of fact, there was a guy in Southern California that ended up getting arrested for paddleboarding. He got they were chasing him. I don't know if you remember that over by the wharf. I don't know what beach it was. But I'm like, yeah, I didn't have that problem. No one was chasing me down. I was on a private lake just paddling in the middle of the lake with not a soul around. It's like, where is everybody? I want people out here. I want as many people joining me as possible. If they can just figure out their fueling, right? They can start enjoying the life that I've started enjoying, because I haven't been like this my whole life. I spent 20 years of being sick and unhealthy. But if I can just basically find the right thread of information and follow my YouTube recommends and chase enough rabbits down enough holes, it's like, oh, yeah, I can find truth too. You know, I can find that. Yeah, go ahead.
Why don't we just put everybody on Ozempic? Why don't we just do that instead? What are your thoughts on that?
God. Ozempic. You know, that's a battle that I want to win, but Ozempic, Ozempic for kids, Ozempic in pregnancy. You think about like PCOS, polycystic ovarian syndrome. This is hormonal imbalance, essentially hyperinsulinemia, but it's messing with your sex hormones. This is for men and women, but for women especially, we put you on Ozempic. All right, we'll put you on Ozempic. Great. No one says anything to you about, birth control or contraception, and here you are lowering your insulin level, right? You have PCOS. You finally have normal periods, and now you can get pregnant. Now you do get pregnant, and you've lowered that insulin level. That is a physiological state for women to have during pregnancy. They need to develop insulin resistance to allow the baby to grow. You're developing a baby, insulin turns on that growth, and if you lower insulin, that baby isn't going to grow. That growth signal isn't going to occur. So now you end up with smaller babies or babies with development problems. Ozempic and Ozempic for women, Ozempic for children. Think about this: using Ozempic in a child in a condition where that child needs to be insulin resistant. You have to be insulin resistant to grow during puberty. Here you are stunting a child's growth during puberty, lowering their insulin levels so they can't grow. And we think that this is going to be okay. I really believe that we should have some rules and regulations if you're a woman on it during childbearing years. The iPledge program that we use for Accutane, you should have to turn in your pregnancy test, because having an underdeveloped child is horrific. You're going to have small birth weights. You're stunting that fetal growth. Not to mention, like, just people just need to see the results. Let's look at this more objectively. First of all, it's amazing. Like, there's very few people are still on it after 2 years. Like, a third of the people can't even tolerate it. Half the people aren't on it in 1 year. In 2 years, 70% of the people aren't taking it. Like, okay, so what happened to them? They all had that weight regain, and when they gained the weight, it was all fat. So they lost lean body mass, and that's something we should make this a requirement. A DEXA scan, some sort of scan. I don't even care if it's accurate. Maybe just use the same one so we can see trends. Let's see what your fat percentage is. Is it going up? Is it going down? Are you destroying your lean tissue mass? Are you losing 40% of your weight loss as lean tissue, and only 60% as fat mass? I want it to be 75% of the weight that you lose to be fat mass. I see what Verta Health does with it, and it makes sense. I believe that there is a place. And if you listen to Dr. DeFranzo, Ralph DeFranzo is an amazing. That's the ominous octet, the different defects of diabetes. But he talks about, like, I think that there is a place for GLP-1s if you have that defect, and I think we should figure out what defects people have. But that's a side note. But I think people need to learn nutrition, and then if they need the GLP-1, then go ahead and use it. But with the idea that you're going to slowly ramp up and you're going to slowly ramp down, and it's going to be we have an off ramp for you, because there's a lot of things that have to be worked on. There's a lot of this is mental. This is an addiction issue. This is that reward center being hijacked. This takes time. There's deep ruts in people's heads, and it's going to take some time to fix. But if you teach them the right way to eat, nutritionally speaking, they can go back to that when they're off of their GLP-1, so that you want to set them up for long-term success. And I really believe that's through understanding your nutrition. And this is where I think the CGM comes in, knowing what your blood sugar is and how to really optimize your nutrition along with your lifestyle, because you're using your aura data. And now you got Aura and Dexcom coming together, which I think is pretty interesting. But and I think there's two different roads that people can go down, and which really it's a drug focused road, or it's data and information. And I think it needs to be your data and you understanding your information, and don't leave that up to anybody else. You really have, if you think about like how we have medicine now, like here's your lab a year later. What do you do between that lab, between those 3-minute conversations, which I thought had no idea. I thought doctors were spending so much more time with these patients, but they are rushed. They get in and out. Yeah, your labs look fine. It's like, whoa, you just glossed over these labs. So healthcare somewhere occurs between these 1 hour, between these labs that are literally like a year apart or 6 months apart. I want people to make interventions like within a day, within minutes, right? Hours, weeks. And I want them to see those results. And I think that's where the power is, in knowing what your results are as you're going through. Like, how is this going to affect me? If I take this medication, how is this going to affect me? What will I see? And what's really cool is that if you think about a CGM and using diabetes medications, for example, imagine doing an oral glucose tolerance test with a CGM and doing like a 1 hour glucose and insulin level. Now we got kind of like a modified craft test, and we can start going, okay, which diabetes medication would work? How can we personalize medicine here, especially in relationship to diabetes? If we have more data, we have to have the data though. So getting people to participate, I think this would be actually pretty simple, is have people do a CGM and then hang out at the lab, hit that cola, do a 1 hour insulin test after you've chugged it, and get the insulin and glucose 1 hour later and go, okay, this you don't make enough insulin, or you make a lot of insulin. It's just your cells are really resistant, or your liver's kicking out a lot. Like, what are the different defects, and therefore what medications would work best? I even thought would be cool is that you could give somebody the different medications and have them try it for a week and watch, and have them do similar tests and go, all right, this is how this medication is affecting you. Let's personalize your therapy based on really what your defects are. I think this is where medicine shines. I think there's some cool stuff that we can be doing here with individualizing diabetes therapy, with empowering patients to lose weight and to understand their own metrics, because like literally if the objective should be to get them away from, like, cure them, teach them, so they aren't dependent upon the healthcare system to injure them, to really help them long term. I think they can help themselves, and I think that's where knowledge. All your listeners, that's why they're listening, is because they want to empower themselves to learn and make some sort of change, and then see the benefits later.
Let me ask you just an sort of a little tangent here, because we have a few minutes left. Are you familiar with the MedWatch system for pharmaceutical adverse events reporting? Is that something as a pharmacist you participate in, or we're familiar with?
Yes, but man, to be honest, there's a liability involved with doing MedWatch versus VAERS. Is that similar? VAERS is vaccine.
VAERS is vaccine. MedWatch is something the FDA put in for post-market surveillance, which I understand is only
hardly ever used it.
Yeah, this is a thing.
So underutilized.
Right. It's like you have all these adverse events that occur that never get reported because nobody wants to use it. It's estimated less than 1% of people actually use the thing. Yeah. And so we don't know what all these drug side effects are. We just have to sort of rely on the pre-market analysis done by the drug companies. And so it may take you 10 years to discover that people are dropping dead or having serious complications because no one ever reports them. It seems,
yeah.
We saw that who just got named head of the FDA, Marty Makary, I think. I think so. No, or he's in it. Yeah. I think he's head of the FDA now. Hopefully, I think that should be mandatory. I think it should be mandatory reporting for all new drugs. I mean, you should have like maybe a 3-year surveillance where every serious side effect that ends up in an ER is reported. And the fact that's not done to me is It was mind blowing. I didn't realize this. I thought we had some sort of, robust. It's a voluntary system, and no one uses it.
Yeah. I don't know how are they coming up with this number about like a quarter of our hospital admissions are drug related. Like I rarely do I see that on these ER reports. That's common though.
Well, I mean, to me, because now everything's an EMR, everything's electronic. There's no patient that gets to a clinical encounter, whether it's an ER, clinic visit, a hospitalization, without a full list of their medication. That's the first thing you ask: what drugs you on, and they take a list,
Right.
and so they know. I mean, it's there, and everybody has a chief complaint and a diagnosis, and so you could very easily marry those through without too much effort. I mean, I just think that's something that I don't know why we don't do that. It's shocking to me. Are you still working at all, Kyle, as an active pharmacist, or are you completely doing sort of other
Shawn,
thing?
This is my thing. Man, I don't know if I should say this out loud, but I will. I mean, I hope I never go in a pharmacy again. I don't, the goal was, because I do love paddleboarding. I really love to paddle all over the place, but I want that freedom. So I was like, the goal has always been like, I want to be a remote pharmacist. I really want to get paid for what I know and not being sitting there in my basement clicking away as a prior authorization pharmacist, approving and denying prescriptions. But like, hey, I've been doing this diabetes education for 10 years. And everyone told me, it's like, Kyle, prevention will never pay. You're never going to get anywhere. It was so discouraging. Like, wait a minute, but the information I give is so valuable. And I even had an employer tell me like, Kyle, I'm not going to pay you. You enjoy this too much. I even had CEO of a hospital tell us that, Kyle, you're hurting our butts in beds. That's how you're getting paid. And so you're decreasing hospitalization. If I walked into one of the patient's rooms and started talking about a nutrition advice for diabetics that was other than their recommended, I would get terminated. Like, really? My job's on the line for this? Yeah, I'm going to roll up my sleeves and sneak in those rooms. And the nurses would be like, Kyle, this person's ready to hear you. It's the gospel of Kyle. Okay, ready, let's go. If I had like 10 minutes, I'd run into a room and be like, let me tell you. What's frustrating is that you talk about like what meds you're on. Nobody ever asks, just low-lying fruit, what do you drink? Like, what are you eating? What are you drinking? What does your diet look like? I mean, I had patients tell me, oh yeah, I eat bacon and eggs pretty regularly. Like, oh yeah, how often? And like, every Saturday. Like that. That's how you did it. So you ate a giant bowl of cereal, had some orange juice. You thought it was healthy. Had 64 ounces of soda every day, and that's why you're here. Like, that's the real question. Like, why are you here? Why are you in this hospital? I want to know why. Let me see their lipid profile. And I always thought that was fascinating, to get their lipid profile if we could during COVID. It's like, okay, people with the worst insulin resistance are going to be the ones that are going to have the worst COVID response. And it was really frustrating is during COVID, I just didn't have the data. I didn't know where to look, but I was looking all over for, really, when it comes to conflicts of interest, I find them quite fascinating. And here you and I did both done content on Fatima Stanford and 60 Minutes. She was on 60 Minutes. She was the one that said that obesity was a genetic disease. Like, yeah, sure. You took $30,000 for Novo Nordisk the year before. Oh man, that was really frustrating. And I thought, man, 60 Minutes didn't do their homework. Why didn't they look her up first? And here she's going to be on the 2025 Dietary Guidelines Committee. Like, no, we don't need this. We don't need any more bot professionals. We don't need the ADA to recommend the use of insulin in a condition of hyperinsulinemia. Why in the world are you recommending insulin for insulin resistance? I mean, talk about making it worse. Like, how much money do you get from the insulin manufacturers to keep that narrative going? Same thing with the AHA. I don't think we need these so-called experts anymore. They're all conflicted. And I think it's time that the people started realizing that and started realizing who they need to trust. Take the conflicts of interest very seriously.
Well, I'll tell you what, Kyle, we're just about out of time. So good. That's you definitely can talk well. So With the last minute or two,
You didn't get any questions. Damn.
Well, you did a good job just getting stuff out there. Share where people might find you if they're interested in hearing more.
On my website, sign up to be on my email for the newsletter, as well as I have this device that I'm working on, and it's going to be 10 years essentially of distilled diabetes education, as well as weight loss, really chronic disease reversal. I'm putting it into an app. It's going to be an artificial intelligent athletic, as well as just health assistant. And it will utilize as much technology and much data as we have of you to kind of guide you back to better health. So I'm super excited about it. I've been working on it for a long time. It's a new kind of, I think I'm so excited about the application of artificial intelligence in this healthcare space using sensor technology. This is not to make us too geeky and like future robots here, but I think more data is a lot better than no data. So like if you want to measure and fix something, you got to track it. So this device is gonna bring it. I hope that it's gonna be it should be really inexpensive. I want people to spend money not on the hardware, but I want them to spend it on the coaching and the education and getting that individual accountability and kind of that community basically vibe that you have when people are supporting you and you start realizing that you're not in this alone and that there's so much out there that we can do to really optimize our health. So sign up on the website, unscriptedpharmacist.com. I'm also active on LinkedIn and all the other social media, Instagram, Facebook.
All right, Cal.
I see you on all that stuff.
I gotta run, man. I gotta run. Thanks so much. Appreciate you doing
Thank you.
Thank you very much.